So thank you and welcome again. So we'll get started. So this is just an outline of the session. So we're going to be talking about volunteering and employability. And the session is designed to be interactive, so you will get a chance to meet each other, to do a bit of online networking, and you'll be able to ask questions as well. We're going to use the breakout rooms, and I will explain how to use them when we get to that. And I'll also just note that the breakout rooms don't get recorded, so you won't have to worry about, you can put your camera back on in that session so you can interact with people there. We'll try and keep to time, and we will have a break midway. So the learning outcomes of this session. So I'm really hoping that we'll all be able to learn from each other. And I'm hoping that at the end, you'll be able to feel more confident in identifying some of your own skills and experiences that you've gained from volunteer roles. So that could be a role that you're in now, or it could be previous roles, or even future roles if you're not currently volunteering. And I really hope that you'll be able to recognize the benefits and how to actually highlight and present your skills when you're going for a job application or an interview. We're also going to talk about volunteering as a way to test a career change, or to try different things to see what you're good at, or even to develop some new skills. And I'm also going to spend a bit of time looking at LinkedIn, because that is a really important tool now when you're looking for new roles and looking to connect and change careers. LinkedIn is really important. So the first thing we're going to do is to get to know each other. So I'm going to set up some breakout rooms. So in case you haven't done that before, what's going to happen is I will allocate you into a room. So then you will unmute yourself so you can introduce yourself to the people in the room. We'll probably go in groups of 3, and I just want you to share, if you want to, what your volunteer role is and one thing that you would like to get out of today's session. So I'm just going to do that now. So what will happen is we'll take about 7 or so minutes, and it will automatically put you into that small room. And then when that time's up, you'll get a 1-minute warning, and then you'll be brought back into the main group. And then I'll ask if anyone wants to share, and I'll join one of the groups as well. So I'm just going to do that now. So you can click, or it'll automatically put you into a room. So I'm just going to do that now. Okay, everyone is back. So do we have anyone who'd like to share what your volunteer role is and one that you would like to get out of today's session? Would anyone like to share?
Liz.
Okay, thank you, Marianne.
Sorry, before raising hand, I just said that. In our team, we were 3 members, so Joanna and Tai and me. So one of our members, Joanna, she was engineer at her country. She was from Colombia, and she came here to study plus get her PR. And she just joined at the moment a volunteers program to get experience and increase her knowledge, something like that. And other team member was Tai. Her name was Tai. She finished the university at Newcastle, if I didn't mistake, Tai. And she joined volunteers at university as a mentor to be engaged with the other students. And she's a mother of 2, and she also joined here tutoring program as a volunteer to get experience and knowledge. So that's how. And now came to myself. So I, the same as them, I finished, yes, university, and 2 years before. So I just joined, I'm a mother of four as well. So I just joined this tutoring program with the AMEP. So it's just recently I just joined them. It's been since February. I just joined them. So I just wanted to increase my knowledge and experience. So, and then I can get future my dream job. So that's yeah, that's all. Yeah, from myself, from our group.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else want to share? No? That's okay. So, so what I'm hearing and what in our group we're talking about is people are looking for that experience and that practical, you know, side. And I think that's really good. And we're going to talk a bit about how you can actually then express that experience and talk about it in ways and use your volunteering experiences in job applications and in interview situations. So let's move on. So I'm sure you've probably seen and are familiar with all of the benefits of volunteering, but today, you know, we're going to really talk about you and what the benefit can be for you in employability and going for jobs. So when you have a quality volunteer experience, you know, it's all of these things that can be inclusive. You can meet new people and feel connected to your community. You should get enjoyment out of it, and it's meaningful and makes an impact. And it's great that what we're all doing is achieving all of these things. And I think it's good to start off with that and look at the bigger picture. But today we're really going to focus on what it can mean for you and what you can get out of it and how you can actually present that and what employers might think about what you're doing as well in a volunteer role. So some of the benefits of volunteering for most roles, it's about, you know, developing those interpersonal skills, as I said, connecting with community, learning how to be flexible. But there's actually some great research done, and when I was preparing for this, I was reading a lot on some of the research that Seek does. So Seek is a company and a platform that you're probably all familiar with that advertises jobs, but they also do a lot of great research, and it's good to have a look, and I'll give the link later, but there's some really interesting insights from employers because probably a lot of your experience might have been as a user, as someone looking for a job, but I guess there's some really interesting and valuable data that comes from the employer side as well. And some of there was one quote that I thought was really interesting, and it was talking about, you know, the surveys that they do, and pro bono is another one as well that has some really good research. And they're saying that employers look to people who are volunteering and they perceive those people as motivated and proactive and socially responsible. So people will view you as those things and see some, you know, qualities about you as a person because you are giving your time to volunteering. So I think it's always important to remember that and to not to devalue that in the context of applying for work. So this Seek research that I wanted to share with you was finding that out of the surveys they conduct with employers that engage with their platform, 95% agree that volunteering can be a credible way of gaining real work experience. So I want you to remember that volunteering is as credible as paid work. And so it really can be a great way to demonstrate your skills. Of course, we all need money and wages to live, but also don't take for granted this time that you're giving where you're not getting paid, because it really can give you some great experience and really make you stand out when you're applying for jobs. And I was hearing when Marianne was sharing that there's some people who, you know, might be coming from different countries and have migrated here, and it can be a really great way to get that local experience and context of the Australian workforce in place as well. It can be quite challenging to transition into work, especially in the context of COVID, and at the moment it's a hard time. So that volunteering work that you're doing or that you've done is something that is really, really valuable. So I want to spend some time talking about soft skills. Sometimes people call them transferable skills or employability skills, but they're essentially the same thing. So the idea of soft skills are the things that we pick up that are outside of formal qualifications. So you might have, you know, a teaching degree, for example, but there's other soft skills that will be really important for you to highlight when you're applying for work and to help you to stand out as a candidate. And in a lot of volunteering roles, we're picking up these soft skills, and even in our, you know, day-to-day lives. So I always encourage people to think about some examples, like if someone's had a break from work or something like that, there's lots of other examples you can use to show how you've developed your soft skills. So some examples of these are time management. So this is something that I think volunteers are really good at, because often, you know, when you're volunteering, you're juggling lots of other priorities. You might have carer or parent responsibilities. You might have employment. Often people are juggling multiple jobs as well as volunteering, or you might have family responsibilities. So that time management and that ability to actually prioritize and manage time is a skill that we shouldn't forget about, and that we should, you know, get more comfortable. And I'm talking about myself and everyone, get more comfortable in talking about your strengths in these areas. Networking, creative thinking, conflict resolution, they're all those soft skills, as well as teamwork, that I think are, you know, we hear about them a lot, but it is good to actually practice talking about your strengths in these areas and looking at where you might use your volunteering role to actually develop these or highlight some of these strengths. So what I'm going to share with you after are some resources, and this is taken from one of them. So I've got for you this resource that I really think is useful, that lists all different skills, and you can go through and actually do your own skills audit. And that way you'll be able to actually look at what skills you have, where are your strengths, and where would you like to improve. And you can actually look at how those align to different paid roles as well. So for example, you might be volunteering as an administration assistant. So some of those skills that you will have from this volunteer role are communication, computer skills, organizational skills, effective time management. And then here you can see that these are some roles that you might want to apply for that would align with the skills that you've gained in that volunteer role. So for example, a project officer, or data entry or office assistant. So when you're applying for jobs and looking on platforms such as Seek, you can actually filter and look for these kind of roles and think about the kind of roles that will align to the experience that you have. And in reverse, if you have a goal and a specific job that you want, you can work backwards by looking at some selection criteria for that job and looking at volunteer roles that might actually build that experience. So another one that I picked, because I believe that we have a number of people from the AMEP program who are tutoring, and I got to meet someone in the breakout room, 2 people. So facilitating and teaching skills, ability to plan and coordinate, effective verbal communication, the ability to motivate others is a really good one that we might forget about as well, and then time management skills. And some of the roles that could align to this and using these skills and these interests are things like learning support assistants, teachers, homework tutors. So in schools, they often have teachers' aides or classroom assistants that can be a really good opportunity. And sometimes in schools, they're looking for people with different language skills as well. So before I worked with LEAP, I was in a previous role, I was with Humanitarian Settlement Service. And I know that a lot of people kind of were connected in with the schools, and people were doing some tutoring and getting some employment in using their language, their second or third language, in classrooms to assist, especially in areas where we have high migration populations. So if that's something you're interested in, I can help you to identify like some of the schools that might have these roles or where to look for those roles. So I'm happy to do that after. So we're a little bit ahead of time. So I'm just thinking we might keep going and then go to the break after. So I'm going to go to our next activity, and then we'll have a break after the activity, if that's okay with everyone, because we're tracking well for time. So I'm going to do another breakout room. And what I want to do is get everyone, I'm going to talk about this project, which is the Sydney Airport Welcome Desk. So what we're going to do is we're going to break off again into small groups, and we're going to identify some of the skills that would be gained in this volunteer role. And we're going to identify what kind of jobs these skills could be transferable to. So I'll tell you a bit about this. You might be familiar with this project. Maybe not. It had to go on hold with COVID, of course. But the state government put together a project to engage international students. So I was involved with this project when I was working with the University of Newcastle, and we wanted an opportunity to have some work experience and volunteering for our students at our Sydney campus. So we joined with this initiative, which was a great initiative, which was the Sydney Airport Welcome Desk. So the idea is that international students would volunteer at the Welcome Desk to increase their local experience. So the role involves, so there's some training, and people will actually, this is at the airport, and it's like a concierge, and it's aimed at welcoming international students. So what would happen is universities would tell their incoming students to find the desk, and there would be information on how to get to their area. So for example, for Newcastle, we had a shuttle and we had the train. So part of the role was for these people, they would look up Newcastle and help the students to get there. So I won't go too much further because I might give away some of the skills, but basically if you think of a welcome desk at an airport, it's like an information service. So what I want you to do is think about some of those transferable or soft skills that you would gain from this role, and then identify what kind of jobs you could apply for, and then we're going to share back. Okay, so I'm just going to put everyone in breakout rooms again, and we'll take a little bit longer this time. And then I'll get everyone, I'll get everyone to share back. So let me just put everyone into rooms. So okay, welcome back everyone. So this time I'm going to ask for a brave volunteer from each group to share. So the first group we had, does anyone remember if they're in room 1? It was Cecily, Khadija, Liz, and Beta. Does anyone want to share from that group? No, no one's feeling brave. What about group?
Sorry, Laura, I didn't unmute myself. I'll have a go.
Thanks, Cecily.
First of all, we had to discuss what the actual topic, what we were meant to do in this activity. There were some couple of different understandings, and so that was good. We got some clarification through different people's input, and then once we were on the right track, then it became quite fun to think of different ideas. And gosh, I'm having trouble a little bit myself today, but I'll give it a go. So we thought that teamwork, communication, time management, creative thinking, and like social awareness, cultural skills, cross-cultural awareness and skills would be developed through this if we didn't already have them.
Great.
And also, yes, prejudices and preconceived ideas that may be challenged and corrected as well from that role. And also, then the jobs that we discussed were quite a huge range, actually. Anything from like reception in any area, whether it's hotels or whatever, where face-to-face, or even call center jobs, or gosh, they even have people in banks nowadays, I've noticed. So and then we also talked about events, being an event assistant, perhaps, if you really love coordinating and solving problems. I'm just getting that idea now. I think just as time, the minutes go by, then I'm like inside, I'm cooking up new awareness. But we did talk about, if anyone else wants to help me out here, just the social skills that would be developed with communication.
Yeah, that was a great summary.
Tourism.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I think that was a great answer. And it's interesting. I think in our group, we spoke about different things as well. So when you were saying that, just clarifying the activity, it's okay if your group spoke about your own volunteering role as well. That's fine. We do that in room 2. And then we spoke about the airport role, but it's all valuable, so don't worry about that. So does anyone from my room want to share? Room 2. No? You had good answers, so. Bruna, can I ask?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was room 2.
Sorry.
I'm doing a master's of social work, and I'm a lawyer in Brazil. So one of the areas of social work I wanted to work is policies and research. And in this work placement now, I'm working with environmental social work. And I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm working, so I'm doing a lot of reports. So I'm working on my writing skills. Also, as part of my work placement, I'm going to this store called the Staples Bag, which is a store created to help the community. Everything that they sell there is really cheap. So I'm going a few days per week to this store, not only to help them, but also to interview people as part of my research. So I'm working on my interpersonal skills as well. And yeah, I think I have been working only for 3 weeks. So so far what I did was basically research and interview people as well. So I've been basically working on my interpersonal skills and research and writing skills.
Thank you. And we also we named some similar skills for the airport role as well. So I'll leave that because Cecily covered all of the ones that we discussed. What about room 3? So in room 3, we had Brian, Joseph, Marianne, and Stephen. Does anyone want to share?
I think Brian said you have to share it. You can share from our team.
Brian, you've been dubbed in.
Well, we talked about many different things, but it was primarily everything that the other 2 rooms have mentioned. And again, the same job positions and things that we looked at, reception or technology. But I think one of the major things was that the skill that you would identify with is that you need to have patience and resilience, particularly with people that perhaps that were coming from overseas that didn't have the same knowledge that the people that they met that they had. And it's very difficult to for the person giving their knowledge to somebody who really doesn't have, like as an example, if you've got a student that's coming from overseas and they need to get to Mossman as an example, the difficulty, it's an easy thing to do, but to know to be at the right bus stop and to catch the right bus and the number of the bus and how many stops to get off, that takes a lot of communication where you also have to be very concise, because otherwise the person that you're telling all this information to can go horribly wrong, which unfortunately then you would pick up the blame for. So we had a look at different skills and things that would be gained and different areas that perhaps could utilize these skills.
Great. Thank you, Brian. That's very true. And I like that you said resilience. And I think actually being able to talk about your own resilience and ability to manage stress is something really valuable in applications for jobs and in interviews, because that's something now that people are really looking at. People are also looking at how you might look after yourself as well. So I'm finding in interviews that it's some questions around self-care and resilience are common now, because employers there's a duty of care to make sure that people will look after themselves and know how to make sure that they don't get burnt out. And that's something, so resilience is something that's really, really important to talk about. So thanks, Brian, that was a good one. So thank you everyone for sharing. We are going to take a 10-minute break, which will take us to 2 o'clock. So if you want to, please make sure you stretch, take a break. You can just put yourself on mute and turn your camera off if you like to. If you are interested, there's some really good resources on this website. I'll be sharing the slides and the recording with everyone, but if you want to stay online, check out the balancecareers.com. I don't know why that's cut off there, sorry. But it's a really good website. There's some great articles on there, so feel free to have a look. Otherwise, we'll be back at 2 o'clock. So thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I think we've got most people back. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about volunteering and selection criteria and talk about skills a little bit more. I think something like, it's always hard to actually write about yourself and to actually promote yourself in that way. And we're not often used to doing that in a formal context as well. But the more you do it, you can just get better at it, and once you find some good examples, you can reuse them. and you can start to have ones that are your go-to, that you get more confident when you're in an interview situation or when you're writing, and you can just keep refining them. So I encourage you to find ones that you're really comfortable talking to. So I've heard a lot of you in the sessions and in your sharing talk a bit about the skills that you have in that role. So I think, we're all pretty clear on the kind of skills that you have in your current volunteering role. But what I want to just talk about now is actually doing a bit of a skills audit. And this is the resource that I'm going to share with you. So this is just one section. There's a lot more in the list, but I want to encourage you, even if you have done this recently, it's always good to go back and do again. So there's actually, I'll share this with everyone, but what I want you to do in your own time is to actually go through and identify the skills that you feel confident in and areas that you want to improve in. And it's also a useful exercise to be sure in skills and in areas that you're actually not interested in, because that's okay. And it's good to look at that and be aware of that, especially if you're thinking of changing a career or trying new jobs. It's always good to be really familiar with things that you just don't want to do. For example, I'm really bad at maths, so I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy going through accounting spreadsheets and things like that. So I know that that's an area that I'm not great in, and if that's required in a job, I'm really open about it and say I need support in this area. I don't enjoy it. I'll do it, of course, but it's not my strength. So in this list, you'll be able to go through, and it's also, if you are actively looking for work, I would encourage you to write some examples. So for example, attention to detail or conflict resolution. There was someone who gave a good example of that in one of the breakout rooms. So list the areas that you feel confident in, and that you can also look at examples from previous work or the volunteering that you're doing, or even in your own personal life, the things that you're balancing. I've interviewed people before, and they've used really good personal life examples where they're saying, I study, I work, and I volunteer, and this shows that I'm able to prioritize and to manage my time effectively. I think I've heard some really great examples of that. And people, you can do it, you know how to manage all these things in your life. So it's a great thing to use in an interview, and it shows that you are aware of yourself and of your strengths, and that's always something that comes across really well in interviews as well. So for those of you who don't know me well, I've sat on a lot of recruitment panels for in a university context for different roles, so casual roles, so sort of new graduate roles, and also in higher level corporate, sort of those senior roles as well. And so I've listened to a lot of people talk about their skills, and there's definitely things that stand out. And when people are able to talk about their strengths and talk about themselves, but also reflect on the areas that they're working on, this really stands out. And when people can be really open and reflective of these and give some really good examples, this is always something that's great in an interview. So I will share that with you, and it's up to you if you want to do it or not, but it's a really good list, and I really like this resource because there's some things in there that you might not think of all the time, and things like ordering, like filing, and even things like cooking. Like there's things that you can put in there that you might be surprised might actually be useful in some of the things that you're applying for. So just a show of hands, who is familiar with the STAR concept of situation, task, action, and result? Just put your hand up if you've heard of this before or used it. Okay, few people, thank you. So for those of you who haven't, this is the STAR method is something that most employers are looking for in an application. So this can be either in an interview or a written application when you have to address selection criteria, people are looking for, in summary, the star. So what was the situation? What was the task? What was the action? What was the result? This is how you're proving that you have the skills that you say you have. So this is also in the resource pack that I'll be giving you. So it's really, really good to practice being able to answer in this way. And this example that I've put in here is a little bit wordy, but you can refine it so that it's really short. You can do this in, 2 sentences, but this is what people are looking for evidence of the skills that you say you have. So part of my role as well is to manage our TechMates program. So I've used an example of the role that we have at LEAP. So we run a digital mentoring program and we have volunteer TechMates. So the TechMates in this program, if you were applying for a job and you wanted to show that you had communication skills, you could use an example of your volunteering. So it's about teaching older clients how to use technology. So to use the STAR method, you would say, what's the situation? So you're allocated a learner or a client who is in their 70s, so older, who wants to communicate more with their family, but they don't know how to use their phone. So the task is the volunteer needs to teach the client how to use a video call and explain how it worked. So if you were writing in it, you would say, I explained in plain terms how to make a video call. I demonstrated the steps and encouraged the client to practice. And the result was that my communication and mentoring was successful because the client let me know that he called his niece via a video call independently. So you can see there that this is how you're explaining what it is, but you're going further and explaining how you were effective. And this is what, when an employer is looking at an application, this is what they're looking for. What's the evidence? Everybody's going to say, I have great communication skills. Everybody's going to say, I'm a great team player. But get creative and stand out in the way that you show that. And you can use your volunteering role to do this. And it does take practice, because it's not something that we do in our normal day-to-day life. We're not, justifying things and explaining how we do things all the time. So it's something that you can practice. And so in the resource sheet that I'll give you, it has some space to practice writing and this example as well. In case you forget, you can use that. But it is really effective, and it can be a really great way just to communicate in the workplace as well. I first came across this when I was working, and one of my senior managers taught me that and said, in an email, I just want to see this and I want you to show me how you're actually doing things, and this is the best way to communicate. And that was their preference in sort of ongoing information about how a program was going, or what did we improve with our program. And it's a really useful tool, so I encourage you to use that. And you can definitely look up, there's lots on, if you Google, you can read a lot more on the STAR method and ways to practice that. So just moving on to the next section. So I'm not sure how many people in the room, I'm not 100% sure where everyone's at in terms of career changes, or if you're looking to strengthen your career or launch into a career in Australia, if you've located here from another country. But this can be applicable for any sort of job searching. So there's a really good website called joboutlook.gov.au, and I think it's really valuable because it actually looks at the trends in Australia by sector, and it gives you an idea of where there'll be a growing demand. So a lot of countries do this, and especially in terms of migration and when people are looking to get different visas, this is really useful as well. And this is something that a lot of universities use to help people to plan their career. They use it in career counselling if students, might start a degree and not sure if that's something they want to do. And they use it in also in high schools, in the careers section of high schools, when students and young people are trying to plan. Because we want to be able to get employment, and you know, there's always value in education and lifelong learning, but if, like most of us, we need jobs and we need money, we need to be actually get employment. So it's always good to know where to go for the factual information and data on where there will be more jobs. And Seek is really good for that as well, actually, because they will use the data of the based on what jobs are being advertised and being recruited for. So Seek has some really good resources in this area, as well as Job Outlook. So what you can do is you can look at the different industries, say, for example, education and training, and you can look at what kind of workers will be needed in that sector. And then what you can do is you can go further and you can start to look at particular job roles and the skills that are needed for that. Not just the qualifications, but those softer or transferable skills that we're talking about. So you'll start to see there's a bit of a pattern here in terms of you can look at the job that you want, look at the criteria, and start to build up your CV really specific to the kind of skills and traits that they're looking for in this sector. And it's also good to show that you're looking into this. You know, I think it's good in an interview, you can talk about the research that you've done prior to that, and you can talk about, you know that there might be a growing demand for that. It's always good to show that you go above and beyond when you're applying for work or looking for a career change. So obviously volunteering is a great way to test that out as well. So I think some of you have already shared that, you know, you're looking to connect in and get experience in the areas that you want to work in, which is fantastic. And it's also good for if you're thinking about other areas, you know, finding out what you might like, what you don't like, and also testing out some of the skills that you might want to further develop. So you're probably all familiar with Seek, but you can have a look at roles that fit to that, and then look for volunteer roles that align to your future career goals. So you're probably familiar with, you know, Go Volunteer and some of the other websites that you can use for volunteering roles. But often now volunteer roles are really treated similar to a paid role. So it can actually be quite competitive to get some of the skilled volunteering roles as well. So I encourage you not to give up if you find a volunteer role that's competitive to get into. If you just keep at it and find ways that you can get more experience, because that can really help. And I've definitely gained employment from volunteer roles in my own career a number of times. And, you know, there's different ways, like things like joining a volunteer board, if you want to get experience in governance and policy, as some of you have already shared. And there's lots of ways that you can increase those skills, and that could be virtually online as well as face to face. So there's a lot of online opportunities that you can actually filter if you're looking as well. So I just wanted to highlight the career advice section on Seek. So that's what it looks like if you go to the top of the page. There's some really, really good resources on there, and I encourage you to have a look at that. So I'm going to move on to LinkedIn. I find that people kind of have a strong reaction to LinkedIn. I'm not sure why. Some people seem to really love it or find it really frustrating. So just a show of hands, who has a LinkedIn profile already? Okay, a few of us. All right, and who has found a job using LinkedIn? Okay, I can't see any hands. Interesting. Oh, sort of. So LinkedIn is actually a really good resource. And once you can adjust it to meet your needs, adjust the notifications, it's a really, really good platform. They do send a lot of notifications. Someone was mentioning earlier, they find that irritating. You can turn the notifications off. The more that you use it, the more tailored it's going to get to what you're looking for. So some of the benefits are to search and apply for jobs, but it's really about profiling yourself and your skills. And some people might be quite uncomfortable with that, but it is really valuable because people will go to LinkedIn and look at your profile. So a lot of employers and recruiters are doing this now. And even if their job isn't advertised through LinkedIn, chances are they're going to go and have a look for you on LinkedIn. And it's quite common to have your profile on your resume or CV and to have a link to it. And it's a really good way at just creating a professional snapshot. So it's important just to leave it just for your professional side and volunteering side. It's not a social media platform like you would use personally, such as Facebook or Instagram, things like that. You want to keep it looking really professional. And it's really important for networking, so you can meet a lot of people and you can connect and find out about opportunities. Some of the opportunities I've got for other like volunteer roles or speaking opportunities or some interesting training I've got through people sending me information on LinkedIn or through sending direct messages. So it is a really useful platform and I would recommend giving it a try. And there's some education and training opportunities and sector updates. And you can actually, there's a really good job search function as well that you can really tailor to your needs. And there are a lot of opportunities up there. So I've just brought up a profile that I'm going to share with you. So this is my CEO, Cecily Michaels. So I'm just going to use it as a bit of an example because I think she's got a great profile and it's useful to kind of have one in front of us. So if you think of your profile as an online CV or resume, so you only want to have a professional headshot or something where it is reflective of what you want to do. That's not always possible depending on what area you're working in, but Cecily does a lot of public speaking. So you can see here she's got a photo of herself on a panel where she's looking very passionate and engaged, and she's got another one where she's talking, holding a microphone. And if you see here under her name, she's got champion for those forgotten in our digital world. So she's using words that are, they're going to catch people's attention. It's showing a lot about her as an individual and what she's passionate about. And this is something that you can really learn from. And you can actually, a good way is actually looking at people that you know or people in positions from your sector for inspiration. So it's always good to learn from other people. So you'll see you can just start to have a look. You could even look at your organization's page. So for example, you could look at some of the staff in SSI or at TAFE, and hopefully they've got an engaging page as a good example for you to go through and have a look at. And there's also a lot of tips, like if you want to, like on LinkedIn itself, there's a lot of tips of how to make the most of your profile. And when you set one up, it's free and it is pretty easy to use in setting up a profile. The next thing I want to talk about is skills and endorsements. So I've just used here someone from the Women and Girls Emergency Centre, Helen. So Helen here, you can see she's got listed skills and endorsements. So when you go in, when you're setting up the profile, it will prompt you to add your skills. So, and it will have options. So I think it's a drop down, or it'll have different ones that you can tick. So for example, nonprofits. So if you're volunteering and working in the not-for-profit sector, you can select nonprofits. If you have studied in areas such as policy, or that's where you're interested in, or you've worked before, you're going to select that. And how so there's lots of different options you can add. There'll be things like teamwork, leadership, lots of different skills that we've already spoken about today. And it might feel a bit unnatural and uncomfortable, but everybody that uses LinkedIn does it, so it's okay. And it's a good thing to do, and it's a good thing so once you do that skills audit on yourself, you can use that in LinkedIn and you can have a look to see which ones align. And then what happens with endorsements is so LinkedIn will automatically, once you start to connect and add people to your network, you will come up on their profile automatically, and they can choose to endorse you. So when I get new volunteers, sometimes they ask me, I'm looking for work, will you be willing to endorse me on LinkedIn? I'm applying for jobs. And I'll say, yeah, absolutely. Once I get to know you and, I've seen you volunteer and communicate, I'm more than happy to endorse you for those. And so, for example, it might be mentoring. So if there's someone who is a tech mate in our program and they ask me to endorse them, and I know that they do our digital mentoring, I would endorse them for that. So then it would come up like this, for example. So it would have endorsed by such and such, and it'll link to their profile. So it doesn't really matter if you have a high number of endorsements or not. Don't worry too much about that. And I would also encourage you to, so what you can do to build your network is you send people an invitation. So when I'm in training, like if I'm going to professional development for myself, often I will I'll jot down the note of the presenter, and I might send them an invitation if I'm really interested and engaged in what they're saying and I want to be part of their network. I'll add them. So for example, Helen was giving a talk, and so I added her on LinkedIn, and then I was able to kind of see the things that she was doing in her organization. And this is just a way that you can increase your network and you add people. Then I would also encourage you to think about, you can reach out to your peers, so other people you might be volunteering with, and you can endorse people peer-to-peer as well. So a lot of my colleagues that I work with, I would endorse them for things that I know that they do and that they're good at. People you've studied with, people who you might have done different volunteering projects with. That's how it works with skills and endorsements. So as I was saying, this is how it works, and you can definitely ask your volunteer supervisor and your peers. And then also, what is something that I would recommend is choosing skills that are linked to the job that you're applying for. So in the same way that you would tailor your CV to your desired job and your goals, do that with your LinkedIn profile as well, because it's good to show that you're focused and your expertise in that area are highlighted. So for example, when you're applying for a job as a banker, you might not list every single job that you've had in the past that's not related, or you might, highlight the skills that are relevant to that job, and you're going to use LinkedIn in the same way. So you're going to choose the skills that are essential criteria for the role that you're going for, or the kind of role, doesn't have to be exact, and you're going to align that so that when they see your CV, then they have a look on LinkedIn, it's all matching and it's all building a stronger picture of who you are. And it also shows that you know how to represent yourself and present yourself professionally. So that's where LinkedIn can be really useful. You can follow organizations and interests as well. So for example, if you're looking for an engineering job, you might follow Engineering Australia, or you might also follow Engineers Without Borders. So you start to paint that picture, and then you're going to get relevant information. So the more tailored you go with what you like and what you follow, the better the LinkedIn will use that to give you jobs and different recommended articles and things aligned to what you're interested in. And there's a lot of useful information on there. And a lot of organizations will use LinkedIn for this more than Facebook and more than other platforms now. So a little bit about searching for jobs on LinkedIn. I actually find this to be quite useful and quite specific. So the main places people will look for work now are things like Seek and LinkedIn, and often the two accounts are connected. So for example, you might set up a job in Seek as an employer. So say I'm looking for a receptionist, I might set up that job and then share it on my LinkedIn. And then that way, everybody in my network is going to see that I'm looking for a receptionist, and you can actually recommend other people, you can share it. So it works in that way. So it's really, the more people you can connect with and follow on LinkedIn, the more opportunities you're going to be exposed to. So this is just an example. So when you go in to LinkedIn, you can actually see this without being signed into a profile, but you can't go past a certain point and apply without having a profile. So if you haven't got a profile, feel free to have a look. You can, look at other people's profiles, get some ideas, but there will come a point where you can only go so far without having your own. So I would recommend having a look first, then setting up your profile, and then you'll be able to use the full functionality. There's also add-ons and things that you can subscribe to. So it will try and upsell you, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. I've had a free version for a long time, and I find that I can access everything that I want to. A little tip I almost forgot. If you are signed in and you look at someone's profile, they will get a notification. So be careful. If you go on to someone's page every day, they're going to get notifications and they're going to get a little concerned and might be a bit worried. So just be careful. It's not like Facebook and Instagram where you can look at pages and people won't know. So just keep that in mind if you're going to individuals' pages. It's fine with organizations and companies. That's not a problem. But just keep in mind, if you are looking for a job, be careful. I sometimes forget that and realize that I've just gone through everybody that works somewhere when I'm looking at something. And yeah, you just want to be careful. Same if you're going to, look for people that just keep that in mind. It's not anonymous once you're signed in. So the benefit of that as well is that you can check. So if you've gone for an interview and you can see if the people on that panel, for example, have looked at your page, you'll get a notification. So it is useful. So back to searching for jobs. So you can type in or look by different categories, and you can also select the location and distance as well. So for example, this one's set to 40 kilometers. You can, like other search functions, you can select job type, so full-time, part-time. You can also add more filters like which level of job. So for example, executive or new graduate or entry level. So it will filter based on the things that you're selecting, which is really useful. So this, as you can see, I've put in administration assistant, and it's bringing up some different jobs on the left. So it's got 189 results. And then on the right-hand side, it's going to bring up the summary of that. And so you can see in this example for this job that you will click through and it'll take you to their website. So it might take you to Seek, or it might take you to another page to actually apply. But it's a good place to get a summary of what's available. And if you see on that left-hand side, it's also got turn on job alerts. So it will save that search and it will email you any new additions to that search. So it's up to you if you want that on. There's lots of different features where you can turn off the notifications. So it depends. If you like to get emails on these things, that's fine. If not, you can turn those notifications off. So that's how you search for jobs. It will prompt you with the kind of titles as well. So if you're not sure, have a play around and you'll start to get a feel for the different terminology that they use. We've just started using LinkedIn to advertise for volunteer roles as well. So some organizations will use LinkedIn, but it's primarily for paid roles. And you can also see if you've got any connections for people that work there. So for example, if I clicked on that role, it might bring up people that have also studied at the university that I studied at. So the more detail you have in your profile, the more information you'll get that might be useful when applying for a job. So you might see someone that studied with you that works there. So then you could reach out to them and say, hey, I'm going for this job. Is there any advice you could give me? And you can connect in that way, because I think, you know, it's still really important to build your network, and it's about who you know a lot of the time as well, and any additional information that can help you stand out. So we are definitely ahead of time, which is always good. So what I want to do now is just open it up to any questions, and I appreciate, you know, some people might not feel comfortable to you know, ask questions, and I'm happy to stick around at the end if you're not comfortable to sort of chat in front of everyone. But is there anything that anyone would like to discuss, to I don't know, actually share, or any questions, whether it's about LinkedIn or any others? Yep, Mariam, you're just on mute.
Oh, sorry for that. How to add the STAR method on resume? Do we have to add the STAR method on resume, or we have to prepare ourselves while we have interview?
I would use it in the application, so the cover letter. So in your resume, usually you don't give examples, but often people look for a cover letter where you have to address the selection criteria. That's where you would use it. So select when it has the selection criteria, so you use it in the application and in the interview. So for example, it might say essential criteria, previous experience working in an office environment. So then you could say, you know, at this volunteer role, I did this, this, and this. And so that's how where you would use the star. And usually it's for things like things that you need to prove, or you could use a good example like time management, or balancing competing priorities, or those kind of things, or like problem solving. That's where you can really make the most of the STAR method.
And we have to use one skills in cover letter that cover all the STARS method. One skill or two?
So you actually do that to prove one individual skill. So say essential criteria, usually there's like 6 or 7. For example, when they say that that's what they're looking for, you would use the STAR method for all 6. So if one is teamwork, you would use the STAR method to prove how you are an effective team player with an example.
Can we get any example of cover letter that this method used plus any resume?
Sure. Yeah, I can add that to the resources.
Thank you so much. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, and there's what I can do is I can share some websites that have some really good examples.
Okay, good. Thank you.
No problem.
Lauren, I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know. I am resident, but I am provisional resident because I am waiting for my PR because of COVID, or that situation is so delayed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is a problem for applying, because of course, when I check it, always said as a resident, but I don't know if that situation, or I need to wait in, or is okay for the company.
So speaking from my previous experience working with international students and in that area, what I would recommend is...
I am no international.
Yeah, sorry. But I mean, I'm speaking from knowing my limited experience, understanding like different work rights. is what I mean. I would state that. So if you're still waiting, because usually some jobs will say they need to have proof of your work rights. So I would explain that you're on is it a bridging visa?
No,
No,
I am
okay.
provisional resident because
Okay.
I am waiting for the PR.
Yeah, so I would put
Correct.
that in there and just explain what that means a bit, because most employers, like a lot of employers, aren't familiar with that. So I would spell out your work rights. So for example, if you have unlimited work rights, just put that in there. Or if you you have to kind of explain to the employer what your work rights are.
No, but my question was, my specific question is because I am interested in be a volunteer in Leave Volunteer team.
Oh, okay.
So it's okay for this? Or,
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Sorry.
Okay.
And for volunteering, usually people, it's okay. It's more if you're in an employed role that the visa counts. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Sorry, I didn't quite get what you meant
It's
at
okay.
first.
It's okay.
Who else would like to ask something?
Hi, Lauren. I just wanted to ask you, for the people who want to volunteer in the policy sector, what website did you recommend us?
So I'll ask one of my colleagues, because I have some colleagues working in advocacy and in policy writing, so I can send that to you if you like. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I'll ask my colleagues.
Yes, please. I would love to. I would love to work with policies and research, but it's been hard to find a volunteer job in this area.
There is a website called volunteers.com.au. I think all is about volunteers job in different sections, different different work experience, or whatever you want. So it's volunteers.com.au.
Thank you. I'm gonna have a
just let me check if it's a volunteers.com or volunteers.gov.au.
All right.
Just check, but it's volunteers.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
but
and
I have a chance to get a job as a volunteer, even being a student in the policy sector, because I think usually this sector is a bit hard for,
SIG also has volunteers section.
Yeah, and often people, working in an advocacy not-for-profit have these roles, like where they need people to kind of help contribute to that when they're advocating for that kind of change at a government level. I found there's sometimes roles. And also another one, it depends. Do you want experience locally or you don't mind?
I don't mind, but I don't know. I think I would start locally, maybe.
Yeah. Because I know that with United Nations online volunteers, there's a lot of opportunity for policy, but it's online and it's international. So that might not be what you want, Bruna, but I'll definitely have a look and talk to, I have a colleague who's in research for UNSW, and I know she works a lot in that space. So I'll talk to her and I'll reach out to you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have a look at United Nations as well.
Yeah, no, it's a really good one for online volunteering, really interesting roles and a really good setup as well. It's really supported. There's quite a process to apply for it, but it's always good practice anyway.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem. Do you mind just sending me your email in a private chat on Zoom, just so I can make sure I've got it? Thanks. Who else would like to ask something? Because often, we have questions that other people are thinking as well. So if you feel like being brave. Okay. Well, thank you all for your participation today. We've finished early. Last time I did training, I had a really big group and we went over time a bit. So I wanted to make sure we had enough time. So thank you. Oh, I am going to do a quick poll. So what will happen is I will email you. Oh, sorry, Cecily.
I have a question just about, I'm wondering why there aren't so many people in our group. It seems like such a great opportunity. And so that's really what I'm curious about.
Yeah. So I had 25 people register. So I find with online volunteering, online training, sometimes people just drop off, or sometimes people sign up just for the recording or for the resources. I'm not sure. So it went out through all of the volunteer managers. So in my mail out, there's about 200 organizations. So yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know if Friday is a challenging day for people. I try and change the days I have training on, and this was a topic that was, voted quite highly by a lot of the volunteer managers. So yeah, I don't know. It's difficult to know sometimes with training. Sometimes you get really big groups, and then other times, yeah, you get smaller groups. But for me, it's always good if people are engaged, and this has been a really engaged group, so I appreciate that. It always makes it more interesting when people want to share. So I'm going to do a quick poll because I'd like to capture how you found the session, and I always like to get feedback, and I'm always up for improving things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a and thanks, Marianne, for sharing that link for the volunteering. So I'm going to put a poll up. So what you'll see, it's anonymous. So it's going to ask 2 questions, and you'll just click on the button so that I can get some feedback. So let me just launch it. So it should come up on your screen. And the first question is, how useful was today's content? So you just need to select what you found, and then what was the most useful for you. And as I said, it's anonymous, so. About halfway there, waiting on a few more people. Is everyone done? Thank you. So it looks like most people found the STAR method to be the most useful. So that's good to know. And I'll make sure I share those resources with everybody who registered so that you can have that to go through, and that skills audit as well. So that's good to know. And I also will be sending out a survey with a little bit more detailed information. And I'm happy for anyone to email me. I've just got my email there up on the screen. So if there's anything specific that you would like to know, I'm more than happy for you to email me directly. So it's laurenm@leap.ngo. So please feel free to reach out. The next training session that I'll be having will be on cross-cultural communication. So I will also invite you to that because you will be on the list now because you registered. Sorry everyone. My phone going off there. So yeah, please feel free to reach out, and I just wanted to thank everyone for their time today. And Cecily, you've got your hand up. Yep.
Lauren, does that mean that if we're on your list for the next workshop, because I feel really interested in that, does that mean that'll come through AMEP, or is that
It will, but I'll actually include an invitation to you directly, because when everybody registers, I get their email. So I will include you in the list, so you'll get it directly.
Right. So does that mean that AMEP will also offer it, or I just have to wait and see?
I hope they will. I work with Lisa, so usually she sends it out for me, and then the people who've already attended, I share as well. So
great, because it's so appropriate, it's so applicable.
yeah, that's right. And we get a lot of AMEP participants, which is great. So yeah, I think yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one, and I think it, you know, it'll be interactive, and there's a lot we can learn in that space. So
thank you.
okay, so just checking the chat. Yep, so I'll be able to respond to any emails that people send me with personal individual questions, and I'll definitely share the resources as we discussed. So thank you, everyone. That's it for today. I hope you enjoy your afternoon and your weekend, and I appreciate your participation today. So thank you.